we made of? Why do I get sick? How can I live a more balanced and whole life? These are just a few of the questions explored each week by naturopath, medical intuitive, and clairvoyant Dr. Rita Louise on Just Energy Radio. Explore your possibilities every Friday evening from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join us at justenergyradio.com.
Shadow governments, strange rituals, new world
Shadow
order,
governments,
buried
strange
treasures,
New
planetary
world
mind
order,
control, military cover-ups,
Shadow governments, strange rituals, new world order, buried treasures, planetary mind control, military cover-ups, corporate interests,
presidential assassinations,
unidentified objects, presidential assassinations, population,
fascist,
cryptozoology,
apocalypse, bizarre,
out there.
Out there. It's a strange world.
Visit OutThereRadio.net for more information.
Science has learned that all people possess mental powers which pass the boundaries of the natural.
Ghosts, Bigfoot, extraterrestrials,
Terahub Radio.
psychics, parapsychology, Loch Ness Monster,
Terahub Radio.
paranormal news, giveaways, open chat,
Terahub Radio.
classic rock, and paranormal talk. Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific, at parahub.org, bounceradio.net, and beastradio.com.
You're listening to Ghostly Talk with Doug, Scott L., and Bonnie.
Ben,
sorry.
sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot the Abba.
Abba.
You told me earlier, and then I totally blew it in the introduction or in the.
You're blowing it right now.
Well, I know, but we talked about this anyway. Ben Abba is an experienced security consultant for various financial institutions. One day, he used his unique skills in finding fraudsters to locate the oldest people alive. To his shock and amazement, he found several people living among us that are over 250 years old, and a few that were over 1,000 years old. Ben is now sharing his experiences with these remarkable supercentenarians with the world. He's recently co-authored a book with Dr. Wayne Dyer entitled "Wake Up, Live the Life You Love: Wake Up Moments of Inspiration," and will soon be releasing his book on his research about the oldest supercentenarian wow,
Doug.
That he has found, entitled "Secrets of an Immortal: An Eyewitness Account of 2,800 Years of History." The website is ben-abba.com. That, of course, will be linked up at ghostlytalk.com permanently. And Ghostly Talk would like to welcome Ben to the show. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's a great honor to be on your show this evening, and looking forward to a fun and exciting and probably a wild interview.
Undoubtedly.
Well, Ben's one of them guests that's actually been listening to the show. He told me when we were on break, I'm like, oh, you poor sweet thing.
Probably not the best show to listen to.
We just had our minds blown with numbers
But the first hour you really shouldn't have listened to.
No, the first hour was not typical.
Well, Ben, this idea, I mean, obviously, immortality.
The thing is, Ben, we hear about in the Bible, for example, which is, of course, in the United States. That's it's a pretty important book, and they talk about Moses being 700 some odd years old. They talk, the people have analyzed this stuff, and of course, immediately you're like, well, something must be wrong, either with the math or with us now in common. Maybe we're supposed to live that long. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then of course you have that, which of course you learn at home and in church. Then you go to the movies, right? You're supposed to have fun at the movies, and you find things like those immortal people who slice each other up with swords and take each other's heads off. I don't remember the name of the... Yeah, okay, Highlander, and you've got these things in movies, and you've got like all these bizarre ideas, but for some reason...
Well, they're rooted in fiction, though. I think that's what your idea is that there's
that's what they think. That's what you think.
Yeah.
I mean, and then of course you've got, somewhere in Florida it's supposed to be the Fountain of Youth. So we've got this fascination proven over and over and over in our entertainment, in our religion, in I don't know if it's mythology. I think who was it? Fernando, somebody or other, did actually go looking for the Fountain of Youth.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this concept of living forever. You really do within our brains, within our culture. Everybody wants this or needs this or desires this, all the way to Walt Disney, who supposedly got himself frozen to live forever.
Cryogenics, yeah.
I mean, you've got cryogenics, a whole branch of some kind of science now. Why do we have all this? Why is this concept of living forever so important to us?
Wow, that's quite a question.
I know.
I guess there's a lot. Could be a lot of different ways to answer that question. Some people just simply want to live longer, maybe just to get their room clean once and for all. I had a mother that probably would be, if she could live 300 years and tell me to clean my room every day, she probably would. There's some people that just too stubborn to die, and there's some people that forget to die, and there's some people that just love life and they just live it to the fullest, and they just have no reason to check out early.
Well, and I've heard that. I've heard this saying many times over, is that, some people in life, if you always keep yourself busy doing something, you'll never die. I mean, if you always get your mind working and you're doing something, you got a job to do, you have goals, you have things you want to accomplish, you'll never die. It's the people that kind of stop and say, all right, I'm done. I'm just going to kind of chill out here and not think. My father, this is interesting, but my father said this when he retired, and he's still getting used to his retirement. We discussed this, Doug. I mean, your dad's retired too. But one thing he told me that I found thought was very profound from him, especially, was that I'm like, well, Dad, how's your retirement going? How's retirement going? You're retired now. How you feel? Well, I don't know, Scott. It's really strange, and I'm not really used to it yet because I'm used to getting up every day and going somewhere and thinking all day long and figuring out problems and creating solutions to problems. And now I just kind of wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning and go, all right, well, I'm going to listen to the radio. He's not exercising his mind. So what I've been told, again, just going back to that, is that people that got a job to do, they'll live forever. It's the people that kind of just stop living and stop doing stuff. They're the ones that might go away. You follow what I'm saying there, Ben?
Oh, exactly. In fact, a lot of people, after they retire or shortly after they retire, they seem that their health declines, and at some point in time, they, what's the saying? They assume room temperature. They basically pass away. Yeah. Or sometimes they lose a loving spouse, and they decide, well, they've had enough, or they want to be too long or detached from their loving spouse, and they leave as well. So
that just happened with I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just saying that just happened with a friend of mine. You guys know, my friend from high school. They lost a friend from their family, the kids. They just lost their mother last year, and then not even a year later, their father passed away also. And he literally said, "I miss my wife."
Right.
I miss my wife.
And I hear that a lot. Yeah. Evidently, there's some people though.
Yeah.
Who don't. There's some people who just have been around. You said you found people 250 years old, 1,000 years old. So there's some people who haven't given up.
Well, yeah. Well,
and I'm wondering, why did you go looking for them?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, your typical guest on the show sees dead people. I see really old people, I guess you could say.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
There you go. So I started about in the early 90s. One of my coworkers dropped a tape on my desk called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. It's from Dr. Walsh, I believe is his name. It's a veterinarian, and noticed that the typical caregiver, the typical doctor, basically has a shorter lifespan than the rest of us. And so I decided to look for the oldest person alive to see what they're doing to survive, see what they're doing to make their life, healthy and have a high quality of life, and possibly model my lifestyle after them. And that's what the journey started, and what I found was quite amazing.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to just ask.
Well, one of the things we talked about. Go ahead. We go about is you mentioned that in the Bible there's a lot of people that claim to have lived long years. Well, if you start digging around in even on the internet, you'll find that there's people that live quite a few longer than expected years as well. Guinness Book of World Records has Gene Calment, the record holder, at 122 years. But if you go to National Geographic, you'll see that they had an article in 1973 about a group of people that lived to 168 years of age. In fact, the gentleman the oldest one that they found recently was married at 110. He's now passed away, but it was typical for them to live past 150 years, or that's about their average lifespan. The oldest one on the internet is Lee Ching-Young, who, according to New York Times, died in 1933 at the ripe young age of 256 years.
Wow.
And is claimed to have buried 33 wives and was living with his 34th at the time.
Wow.
So there's some records out there that say people are out there living much longer, and so that's why I decided to look and see, well, if the record books are kind of wrong, or at least they're saying that we can live longer, who are the people out there that may be still alive today that are not in the record books? They're maybe kind of hiding from the people that are the press, the news people that are keeping track of these things, and that's how the journey progressed.
And is it Guinness's, like, I don't want to harp on these people. I mean, they keep track of so many different world records, but what is it their penchant for, like, provability and the problems with documentation 200 years ago or whatever that keeps them at the current record holder and not putting up, Lee, the Lee who passed away in 1933.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is it because of the record keeping, or are they just biased and saying, oh no, nobody can possibly live that long? Why does Guinness do that?
I really don't know the answer, but I believe it's both. I believe the Li Qingyang was in the mountains of China, so he was a little bit more difficult to register his birth date. The record keeping was not as good as it is in Europe, which is where Gene Kalman is from.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think there's some bias. I think there's people out there that don't want to believe that we can live past 120 years. I think it's 122 is kind of like a push even for them. And the thought of somebody living to 168 or 256 years or beyond is beyond what they're ready to accept. It's just beyond the paradigm of life.
Well, I mean, 122 years old. Now, this is you come in contact with a person that I just want to get this straight. The person was 122 years old, correct?
No, that was somebody who was. I mean, he found out a record on the internet.
Okay, I mean, the people that you've come in contact. Well, let me just throw this out there. I mean, who is the oldest person that you come in contact with personally, Ben?
Well, the oldest person that I've come in contact, I believe, is 2,800 years of age, or just nearly 2,800 years
and you
of age.
You talked to this person? You talked to this person personally?
Yes.
See.
Yes, and he's. Go ahead.
Yeah, the phone thing's kind of weird. Well, the one thing we've always made jokes about this. I know Doug and I, we've all kind of bantered about this. Like, well, God,
that's even older than me. Yeah,
yeah, that's older than Doug. Doug is old, Ben. I gotta tell you.
But not that old.
But no, I mean, you see some people that get up in their years. They get to about 80, 90 years old, and I've met some spunky, seniors. I mean, I've met him.
Yeah.
My grandfather, for one, is just he's off the hook. But some people they get to they get to a certain point, and then their health starts to fail, and I don't want to. I'm not going to put any opinions out there on this thing, but some people they get to a certain point and they're kind of not very happy. They're like, look, my body don't work right anymore. I have to take all these pills now, and just generally, my quality of life sucks. It's just not that much fun, right? Now, someone who is 2,000, how many years again, Ben?
2,800 years of age.
I have to ask you this question. What kind of shape were they in? I mean, were they... Because I can't even fathom being, someone that old. I mean, were they... Let's just say, were they coherent? Were they with it? Could you talk to this person? Were they able to have a conversation with you?
Well, I give people a general visualization of Mark Victor Hansen. He kind of reminded me the energy and some of the vitality and actually some of the appearance of Mark Victor Hansen. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but he's one of the co-authors of Chicken Soup of the Soul. That's kind of a gentleman that there's some similarities there.
Uh-huh.
He looks like a very good, healthy, and motivated 65-year-old citizen that lives among us. And he's also discovered a few ways to get himself to look a little younger when he needs to in life. It's not an easy process, but he can make himself a little younger, as other people have found out how to do in various ways. Without the Botox, I should add.
Well, go ahead, Doug.
Is this a genetic predisposition? Is it the way his DNA is written? Or is it like he just eats leafy green vegetables, like they tell us to do?
Yeah.
Actually, I believe all of us have the ability within ourselves to be immortal just as much as he has. I have not done full DNA testing on him. This is a long project to do that. But he does have children. He's had offspring that none of them have actually gone. I think he said what the oldest child he's ever had lived up to 250 years of age.
Mm.
So I have to believe that it's not a genetic feature, although it's possible. Like I said, there's a few other people that are in the 1,000 to 2,000 year range I've also come across. I believe they're out there. I've not done thorough investigations of them. And I also believe there's another person, and about the 2,800-year range is out there as well, have not confirmed that yet. So I don't believe it's just totally genetics, but it's possible. I'm searching for what is it that I can do and learn from him to extend my own life, and I believe what he's taught me, I can teach others to do the same thing.
Well, if we may ask, then, I mean, I got to throw this out there. I mean, you obviously talked to this person, and he did tell you some things that, you know, I know there's a few things we had to watch we don't want to discuss here. I mean, what were a couple of these things that maybe you learned from him, if we may ask? I mean, as far as having this kind of longevity, I mean, it's kind of longevity in years. Is there some things that he does that we can talk about?
Yes, but the truth is that the amount of time we've got would be truly injustice to answer the question. So I'm going to give you, because we're all Americans, we like the 5-second soundbite.
Sure.
I'm going to give you the short answer.
Sure.
And the short answer, it's programming. I firmly believe that's what I picked up from him. And let's expand that a little bit better. He doesn't believe in death, and death is just not a thought, or he doesn't even dwell on it on a day-to-day basis. He believes in living. And believe it or not, most Americans, most people in general, are so focused on death they forget about life and they forget about living. And if we try to reprogram ourselves, I believe, to live as long as we want to live, and treat death as a choice and not a predetermined event, I think we can all extend our lives a lot better and with better quality of life as well.
I assume that he didn't smoke, correct?
That's correct. He's been around before tobacco, so I think that's kind of, he doesn't care much for it. Although I'm sure he's seen it and run into it in a few of the bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
And,
he's probably thinking, "Oh, this is a fad; it'll go away." I mean, what would you think if you were living, 28 centuries? You would think, "Oh, it's another fad."
Well, yeah, but again, the idea here, though, which I find absolutely fascinating, Ben, is just that, and we do, Americans especially. I mean, we really dwell on this thing. I mean, there's always some question or somebody talking about that. Well, this person passed away.
They drill it in your head. That's going to kill you. This is going to kill you.
Well, yeah, we hear about that.
Everything's going to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, so all we do is we're immersed in death. We're faced with it every single day. Everything we do in this country, I mean, I got to say, I think a lot of it is self-induced, too. Look, we invented the automobile, and as we know, the automobile can be a very, very dangerous tool of destruction if used improperly. And that's all it really is a tool. Like a lot of things we have, knives are, they're a tool essentially. They're used to do a job. But we hear every day about some guy getting slashed up by another guy or whatever because he got mad at him. I mean, there's all these things that we've created in this country to make our lives even more dangerous. Christ, I mean, I go out walking every day, right? And that's dangerous, too, because there's cars everywhere. And believe me, Dom and I were dodging cars left and right this morning when we were out taking our morning walk. So there's all these things. We're immersed in this stuff. There's all these cautions we have to have in America. Don't do this. Don't do that. It'll kill you. I mean, there's all these things,
So that actually brings up a good question. Ben, obviously, the world's oldest man, right, must live in a cave. This is like a cave in a mountain somewhere instead of in, like, Minneapolis. I mean, where do you go to live thousands of years? Do you have to live in a bubble?
Well, that's an excellent question, and that's part of what my personal quest was, to find out exactly how he lived, what's his lifestyle, what he eat, where does he sleep, and how does he interact with other people. In general, most of the people I would consider that are 250 years of age or older, and my definition of an immortal is somebody that lives older than 150 years and death is a choice and no longer is a predetermined event.
Yeah.
So I would call these people immortals. Most of them do live in urban areas like in Asia and the India, even the mountains of Russia. But the oldest person I've found so far lives around the Mediterranean Sea in urban areas, believe it or not.
Really?
So he definitely does not live in a bubble. He lives basically in a nice condo in a very busy city along the Mediterranean Sea. So definitely it's not the bubble that's protecting him. It's something that creates a bubble around him, and I think that's he definitely has a spiritual connection. I think that's what separates him from the regular roadkill of society, is he's got some spiritual protection. Because are you familiar with this plane crash recently off the coast of Africa where this one child survived and everyone else killed, and somehow somebody survived. I think this is kind of what separates the immortals from the rest of us, is they have this, what we want to call a spiritual connection or whatever, the spiritual, some kind of a shielding, from the Star Trek analogy there that protects them from these certain accidents, and that's how I think they survive in urban areas. So even though that there may be bombing going on, there may be shootings going on, he just happens to be in the right place at the right time and avoids all that, or somehow survives it from a certain death. And I think that's kind of part of what their survival technique is. It's part of their programming.
Okay. And did you notice? You've seen people from all these different people that would be considered immortals, and you were saying, we were kind of talking about location, maybe, and I guess we're trying to find maybe. Did you notice any type of other maybe patterns with all these people? Again, you mentioned food and lifestyle and things like that. Location obviously isn't going to be a major one because this guy lives he lives in a city. He's not locking himself away in a cave somewhere and meditating all day long. Is there any other patterns you may have noticed when you're in your travels?
Yeah, and I've got a long list of them, but let me give you some of the highlights.
Sure.
One of the surprising thing was that they're not all vegetarians. On average, they eat about 10% of their diet is a protein. Predominantly, though, that protein is either fish, lamb, and occasionally pheasant, not beef or chicken.
Okay.
Surprisingly, or pork. In particular, the oldest gentleman always enjoys at least one glass of red wine a day, which kind of takes you off of that special by Barbara Walters, How to Live to 150, where she talked about, I think it's a special ingredient, resveratrol, that's in red wine.
Uh-huh.
I noticed that all these, I call mortals, seem to have at least one glass, and they don't overindulge, but they usually have one glass of red wine a day.
Okay.
And also from that special Barbara Walters, they have what they call CRDs, the calorie restriction diet people.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that all these people that I researched that were quite old eat very limited amounts of food during the day. It's as if they're almost starving themselves to death intentionally, but it's like to them it's just normal. It's natural for them. They eat in one day what I would eat in one meal. But somehow they've been able to efficiently digest the food. And so I made it my goal to try to get to that diet. That's one of the things I'm going to try to spell out and write up someday for everybody to follow. But their diets are very limited as far as calories is concerned. And they seem to be, it's a healthier, they all seem to walk every day, get a nice good walk in every day as possible. Again, there's days when there's storms and whatever, they probably avoid a lot of walking, but most of them walk. But there's nobody out there I'm aware of that's got they'll give a driver's license to a 2,800-year-old anyway, so that's probably just as well.
Yeah.
They all basically, bum rides or walk. That's basically how they get around. I know one really big factor in their lives is they basically removed all the stress in their lives, whether it be from their relationships, their occupations. Although living in an urban city is kind of stressful in itself, but they didn't seem to. The gentleman that I was talking about didn't seem to be very stressed about his life in his urban environment. He seemed to be actually quite comfortable in that type of environment.
And these things are all. I have to say, Ben. All these things you're mentioning. They're really kind of basic things. That you should do. Calorie restriction. I'm not sure about, but have a decent diet. Exercise every day. Get out and get a good walk in every day. It's what I've been doing, obviously. And the big one, the huge one, which I really identify with, is don't stress yourself out so much. They don't let you. And a lot of people I know of, that have longevity, they live to be very old. At least in our terms that we understand here, they live to be very old. There are people that really are kind of laid back and they don't let a lot of stuff get to them. And these are all kind of really basic things and they make a lot of sense, to me at least. I mean, Doug, what do you think?
Well, I wonder if we've been, scratching at the surface for years in this quest, and Barbara Walters obviously was interested enough in it to do her special. So, I mean, if we've been scratching at this and just not even paying attention that there are people out there who's been living like this for centuries upon centuries, and until Ben found them.
Yeah. Ben, we're going to take a quick break here. Maybe when we come back, we can talk about a couple more of these points we were discussing, a couple more of these patterns you've seen with these people, and then get into some other stuff. Is that cool with you?
Sure, sounds great.
All right, we'll take a quick break here. We're talking about the immortals out there tonight. Wow. Something cool. This is just...
Load up your browser, ben-adda.com for more info. And but meanwhile, of course, we had to describe to Ben that the music...
poor guy got a beating on the last break.
We put him on hold, and he got, pounded by some heavy music.
Yeah.
But all of the music played on Ghostly Talk is independent music, done in people's basements, done in recording studios, but paid for out of pocket. I mean, these are independent artists. I want you to all give the independent artists that we feature here on Ghostly Talk, give them a good listen. Enjoy some of this.
Miss a live broadcast? Feel free to download it direct from the on-demand archives at ghostlytalk.com.
Extreme. With the Hover Round Extreme, you're guaranteed to get through those crowds and give those young people exactly what they deserve. The new Hover Round Extreme comes with a special taser attachment. The taser attachment allows you to get around in those hard-to-manage crowds or get around those rude young people. You're old, you're grouchy, we know you hate young people. Get your revenge. You can't walk? Take it out on others. They deserve it. They take their walking around for granted, don't they? Teach them a lesson. Teach them to appreciate what they have. Get the Hover Round Extreme.
I'm angry. I hate young people. The Hover Round Extreme is exactly what I needed to get my revenge on young people and take out my aggression. With the new taser attachment, I can just shock the hell out of those youngsters. Get them the frick out of my way, damn whippersnappers. When my grandchildren come over, no more misbehaving. Ow, Grandma, that burns! Stop! Ow!
I used to have a lot of trouble with kids getting on my lawn, and now, with the Hover Round Extreme attachment, I just tase the hell out of those kids. It's fun to watch them squirm.
Mister, I'm just trying to get my... Ow! My ball's back! Ow! Mister, that burns bad! Why are you laughing?
My lawn is as green as that newfangled fake stuff they have. I love the Hover Round Extreme.
It's exactly what old people have been looking for. It's the Hover Round Extreme. With the Hover Round Extreme, we guarantee you'll get through those crowds. Shock the hell out of them. They deserve it. They've got plenty of life to go. Why shouldn't they suffer a little? You've suffered, haven't you? You're old. You have to take a lot of medication. People don't pay attention to you. They don't listen to you. They think you're an idiot. They call you senile. They call you rude names. Shock the hell out of them. They deserve it. It's shocking how well the Hover Round Extreme works. No one has respect for their elders. Let's face it. It's time to take that respect. Why earn it? Take it. You've done your time. Get what you deserve. Respect and a Hover Round Extreme. If your insurance doesn't cover the Hover Round Extreme, just make an appointment with your insurance agent and one of our sales representatives. We'll shock them into paying for it. It won't cost you a dime. We do it just for the kicks. Hover Round Extreme. Order one today, or be pushed around by those youngsters forever. You haven't got long to live. You better take advantage of the time you do have left and become as mobile and as aggressive as possible. The Hover Round Extreme. It's what you old people have been waiting for all your long, meaningless life.
Oh, yeah, the Ghost Bandit Demon Hunter show is rocking its way on the supernatural scene.
It's drive time paranormal broadcasting without the driving or the timing. Just go to www.ghostanddemon.com.
Think you know what goes bump in the night? You ain't heard nothing yet.
Each week we'll be bringing you the best and the worst kept secrets in the paranormal community.
Yeah, us, the Ghost Bandit Demon Hunter, Sunday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Ghostanddemon.com. The Ghost Man and Demon Hunter show is beyond the normal broadcast.
I'm steering this vessel into the blackness of voids.
This is Ghostly Talk with Doug and Scott and Bonnie.
I'm not even going to try.
Apparently that's what I sound like all the time anyways.
Well,
so
there we go.
I'll just say this is Ghostly Talk with your hosts, Doug, Scott L., and Bonnie.
I always find that funny. Amber, for example, whenever she's telling someone a story, in front of me always. Like if she's telling someone else a story about me in front of me, right? She'll always make my voice out. Like, we do
that with everyone.
Yeah, pretty much everyone gets that voice.
And I'm abusive and I'm mean, but she always makes my voice out to be like this gruff thing. And we do the thing with YouTube on it.
I know.
I do pirates. Arr. Anyway, we're talking about immortals, people who have forgotten to die, or something like that. It's amazing to me that this is a wealth of information because
it is.
Ben Abba of ben-abba.com went around and looking for the oldest people alive because you see them on TV now and then. They'll do a special. Someone's a centenarian, and they've reached 100 years old, and that makes them very special. But does it? Because there are people that Ben has found that are hundreds of years old, up to a couple thousand, and it's just we're learning so much, and I want to know a little bit more, Ben, about the oldest guy. How do you I know you can go to him and you can talk to him because you've sought him out, but he's not wearing a shirt that says world's best great grandfather, right? So how do you spot somebody like that? How do you know? How did you find in your research what a person? Because how can you verify their identity from that ancient of a time?
Well, that's an excellent question, and there is a long answer to that, but I'll try to give you the short version. What I did, actually, the book I wrote, Wake Up Moments of Inspiration, kind of highlights or summarizes that story. Basically, I put together my researching skills as I use to track down hackers and fraudsters, and combined it with my advanced researching skills, which includes such things as remote viewing, and combine that together to successfully locate and make contact with this gentleman. He is extremely reluctant to speak to me, and took quite a bit of perseverance to get him to open up and finally develop a friendship with him. Most people around him are not aware that who he is. In fact, he said that no one, as far as he knows, in the last 2,000 years has known his true identity. It's been 2,000 years since the last person approached him and was aware how old he actually was. So it's been quite a feat of his. And actually, I think probably because most people don't believe that such a person like that exists, has allowed him to live in anonymity among us. Appearing as an old, as a senior citizen, as a grandfather, and almost to the point of a father, he's gotten away with living among us without being indistinguishable. He does have one thing, though, that really does stick out, and that's he still has his original teeth. Now, if you can imagine first off, toothpaste has only been around roughly around 100 years, the technology. So he had to use other things to keep and preserve his teeth and keep them from rotting. And what he used, he said, was oregano, prepared in a certain way. Well, oregano is a great antibiotic, and it does a good job basically keeping the bad stuff off of his teeth, but it made his teeth very black. So when he gives you a full smile, you're looking at about 3,000-year-old teeth. I mean, it looks really, really bad, but they're still his original ones for the most part. So that's a giveaway there. The big thing that I approached him, and he just, like you said, he was trying to hide his identity. In fact, he kind of changes his identity about every 100, 150 years. So he, like most of us, basically lies about his real age until I exposed him with what the facts I had and the information I was able to pick up through my other research and what I call data mining and remote viewing techniques. And as he began to open up and start telling me his stories, I realized, and in some of those stories are some things that we know commonly in history, but some of them are of unwritten history, things that have not been told and are common knowledge, and I did some research that would make sense. That's when I realized I had the real McCoy, the real deal here, and that's how I started to open up and get some more information from him, which I was further able to research. He does have a few trinkets they're very old, but again, we can all kind of, if we had enough money, buy some of those things. But I don't know if you're familiar with what's called statistical analysis, but basically it's like predicting what your chances of winning a lottery or Powerball is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you apply statistical analysis to this gentleman, it's the chances of him being a 2,800-year-old gentleman are less than all of us winning better than all of us winning the lottery at the same time. So it's kind of like the coincidences were just unsurmountable, and the circumstantial evidence that goes along with it. That's how I was able to prove to myself that he really was a 2,800-year-old man.
And for his stories, he must have incredible stories. Do you have an example of something that was... I don't know why things make the history books and why some things don't. I mean, I know, for example, some things are written about in, a little blurb in a newspaper and then forgotten and buried, and eventually somebody can go on the microfiche and find it,
Yeah.
But some things, like pretty much everything that's happened in my life, never got reported in the news. I mean, they just not that significant. So I don't know who decides what makes the history books and what gets talked about and from history and what doesn't. But there's got to be a lot of stuff that more stuff that happened that didn't get reported than stuff that did get reported. And I'm wondering what kinds of things does because you've talked with this gentleman, what kinds of things does he remember that seems really amazing that he knows that just never got written down?
Well, there's a lot, and in fact, that's what the Secrets of a Moral book is going to be about, is the highlights of his life. Basically, growing up and becoming a merchant in the Mediterranean Sea area, he got to meet and basically do business with many of the world leaders and rich people at that time, and most of them were name droppers. If you would, I'd like to just kind of give you maybe one that kind of goes along with tonight's show that you brought up earlier. He was living around the 1500s near Rome, Italy at the time, and decided to build a clock tower. So he hired a young engineer who had just finished his apprenticeship by the name of Leonardo da Vinci.
Aha.
Now, at that time, Leonardo was not very famous, but he had a chance to work side by side with Leonardo for about 3 years building this clock tower. He got to see the young Leonardo, and again, some of the stories that they've said about Leonardo, again, he didn't see Leonardo his entire life, but he got to meet a man who did eat meat, who had quite a few girlfriends, and was a pretty good dresser, but was also an incredible artist, a drawer, and an engineer. And so we were talking a little bit earlier about what did he do. He was just a quick learner, a fast mind, And this gentleman, the 2800-year-old and Leonardo, they exchanged a lot of ideas, and I think he may have given Leonardo a few ideas that Leonardo later developed in life, and some of the inventions that Leonardo came up with. So it's very likely there was a knowledge transfer going on both ways during this 3-year time that they built this clock tower.
Wow, interesting.
I can go if you want to expand it a little bit more, but there's a lot of stories just like that I can talk about of different people through history that this gentleman has interfaced with and met with.
Oh, I can imagine. I can also imagine there's probably a lot he never had an occasion to meet, but
well, he's just one person, I mean,
right?
Yeah.
So whatever in his travels through the centuries, it's got to be amazing. The book Secrets of an Immortal, the eyewitness account of 2,800 years of history is got to be just chock full of examples like that.
An interesting thought I had. This is high level science, but it's an interesting idea. I mean, a person with 2,800 years of experiences they carry with them. It just seems like, just from a raw storage point, average lifespan for a male now, what is it, 67, 70 years old, maybe if they're lucky, sometimes more than that nowadays. And they take a lot of experience and knowledge. When I talk to older folks, I do come to them for, knowledge about things that I don't have yet. I'm trying to learn from them because they have the experiences that they're carrying with them. But it just seems so staggering to me that, okay, yeah, this person has experiences from 2,800 years that he carries with him. And I'm wondering, what I would ask is, does it alter brain chemistry in some way? I'm wondering if he actually goes beyond the 15% ratio that most of us seem to be using for our brains in our lifetimes. Does he have to use more?
Well, maybe that's what it's for. Maybe we're supposed to.
There you go. Yeah,
and we just don't because we end up passing away.
Because we burden ourselves with so much crap that it ends up killing us at the end of the day. So that's an interesting idea, Ben. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Exactly. In fact, that's kind of one of the things I wanted to find out from him. How much he was able to remember, because there are things that happened in my youth that I can't remember.
Well, yeah.
And what I did notice that was the commonality for his older memories is events that took place that he had a very emotional attachment. He could recall some of them quite vividly. The oldest being a sister that was very close to him when he was growing up 2,800 years, that was suddenly taken away mysteriously and never reappeared again. And that had a very emotional impact on him, but it's a very clear memory. So obviously he's able to remember those things, but ask him what he ate 3 weeks ago, and he probably hadn't had a clue. It's just a routine day for him.
Well, it's just something obviously a meal that you had 3 weeks ago, it's not a significant thing, really.
However, if you made something, like you made this wonderful sandwich, or you made a pasta fagioli or something, and said,
well, that's significant.
And he ate it, and he goes something like, "This is the best I've ever had."
Yeah.
That really means something when he's 20.
Well, because you're attaching emotion to that. It's an emotional thing.
I mean, it would be a compliment that has a lot more meaning from him than it would from me, because I only have 42 years of pasta fagioli.
But again, I think even in our lives, even as someone who lives an average life according to our standards, you're going to remember things obviously that have more of an emotional attachment as opposed to again, which is ironic because it's like, well, I can remember some very emotional things that happened to me in elementary school, which is 30 years ago almost now. But yeah, ask me what I ate a week and a half ago, for dinner. I really wouldn't be able to remember. I could not recall that. So it's ironic when you think about it.
Well, that just means that photographic memory or photogenic memory or whatever, photographic memory is not a requirement for
longevity.
Longevity, exactly.
That's so interesting.
I agree.
Because when you live this long, it changes a lot of the rules.
He must have an interesting perspective on things. Like undoubtedly he must read the news or hear the news or talk to people. But Ben, he must have an interesting perspective having all this experience. When he hears a news story, for example, I wonder what he think. Like, does he think, "Oh yeah, that's happened before," or does he think, "Oh my gosh, this is really exciting for the world right now"? What's his prognosis? What's his outlook on world events right now?
A lot of it is that history is just repeating itself with basically different toys involved. Over time we've gotten more fancier technology and obviously weaponry, but to him, history is just repeating itself. We're kind of almost, to him, in a lot of ways, going through what the Roman Empire was going through 2,000 years ago. So, or not quite that long ago, but when it was just about ready to, have its fall and go into another part of its society as well. One thing, when I was talking to him one time, he was watching TV, and there was a war going on in Lebanon. It wasn't too long ago that Lebanon had a shooting war, and he was pretty sad about it. He said that one of the things that really upset him was that he thought he had relatives or descendants on both sides of the battle, and that he felt how foolish that war was because, they were basically relatives fighting with each other with weapons instead of with words.
Well, yeah, and again, when you have that kind of longevity, when you've lived that long, you really, I think, could see, again, like you just said, history's repeating itself. We can't see that because we're just one generation, essentially. We just see what goes on here, and then we're gone, right? And the next generation takes over, and they do their thing. Of course, there's history books, but nobody wants to read those things anymore.
I don't know why.
But no, there are people that they do say, they do have more perspective because they do study history and things like that. But when you lived it, right, when you've actually been there, it's going to give you a really profound perspective on stuff, I think. And you're going to be able to see that stuff personally and see how history repeats itself. Again, with shinier, flashier toys now, but it's the same thing, essentially. And you could see that, I think, if you actually lived through those things. So that's just so amazing. That, again, that idea. Being alive that long just to see all this stuff happen.
How does he, speaking of family members and stuff like this, I know this isn't on the official list, but I'm wondering, how has he learned to deal with all those losses? I mean, of the most profound memories that you have, it's of people that you've lost over time. And I wonder what, I mean, you've got to grow attached to people. So what? I'm sorry. 33 wives or something. The 200. Lee. Yeah. Lee had 33 wives. It's just like if you go through so many people, you've got to miss them at some point. How do you deal with that much?
That is an excellent question, and I've had a few brief conversations with him about that. He definitely seems to have, again, Li Qing-Yang at 256 had 33 wives. Well, for 2,800 years, if you do the math, he's lost track of his number of wives, but they all seem to have had an impact on him. I think that's what probably kind of hurt. He's got, again, the emotional impact, but he seems to have, one of the things that came up when he was talking about his younger sister that he lost at 2,800 years is that they didn't die, but they just went somewhere. They disappeared, went somewhere on the planet. He hasn't heard from them a while. He hasn't visited for a while. So to him, many of these close relationships just basically went a different direction, and they're out there somewhere. He isn't aware, but they're out there somewhere. Unfortunately, a few of these relationships, he's been forced to, attend the funeral, but most of the time he doesn't even go to the funerals. He just treats them as they're just another somewhere else in time or space or what have you, and that they'll come back someday, just doesn't know when. So it's kind of a combination of believing that they'll be back someday. It's just that they're gone for a while, and dealing with it at the moment and making the best of the circumstances and looking at it as a positive that they had a very good life with him, and whether it be a spouse or a child, and then he's moving and taking their presence with him, their time with him as a gift and as a blessing, and moving forward with that and taking it further himself.
Wow.
What a very adult, mature, obviously 2,800 years he figured it out. But what a very
mature.
What a very mature way of thinking about it. I don't know if when it happens to me, if I'll be able to be that.
I'm sentimental about my guinea pig. I don't know how I can handle it.
Right, yeah, I think I might have a different wiring, but I think that's a very adult, very mature way of looking at things that, I'll see them again. Yeah. I mean, it's all related. We find out on Ghostly Talk, it's all related somehow.
Well,
and so
it is, and that's the true secret, I think, of all this stuff. No matter
he must just have a grasp of it.
Yeah.
That we have not seen. We haven't experienced all that.
Well, speaking of immortality.
Yeah, the show
is not immortal. It's never immortal. We wish it was, especially when we have really cool guests like Abba to talk to on the show about a really amazing subject. And your website obviously is ben-abba.com. Is there any other places we can go to check out your books or anything like that, Ben?
Yeah, I have a site set up to pre-sell the book, Secrets of an Immortal, and the website is secretsofanimmortal.com, with or without the dashes. And they'll have some information. You can pre-order the book, and I send out a free copy of Wake Up Moments of Inspiration if you pre-order the book, and a few other goodies will get along the way. I try to do is give as much information as I can on forums and the blogs, and like Ben Abba is my main blog, benabba.com. But this is another way I found it's a good way of getting some information, just having a conversation with intelligent people like you, and I always learn something and I always get something out of these conversations, and I hope I return the favor to you and your audience as well.
Oh, and then some, Ben, believe me. And this is just a mind-bending idea to talk about someone who has lived a life 2,800 years.
This is as interesting as time travel is to me, because I know time travel is a different kind of thing. It's sci-fi, very, very weird. But I love thinking about time travel because it ends up usually in a headache.
This avoids that whole problem. This guy.
This is similar in interest, though, to me, because it sounds like because it's medical, but it's also humanitarian.
Very spiritual.
It's also spiritual.
Yeah.
It's just an incredible subject to wrap your brain around, and I'm gonna have to take some time, Ben, to think about this. I mean, it's an amazing topic. Thank you,
Ben. Stay on the line for 1 second. Don't just leave us yet, okay?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Unfortunately, the show isn't immortal.
Yes,
We're out of here.
We do have to make way for other shows to come up on the streams.
Yeah, we got a good run going this month, though. We got a lot of shows coming up. The schedule's up on the website. We got a couple surprises on the way here. A couple things we haven't done. We haven't figured out yet, but we're going to figure them out.
Absolutely, and I have to thank Ben Abba, of course, for talking about Immortals, and Gary, the numbers guy, for putting all those numbers in perspective.
And there is a weird relation going on. I mean, and I'm not trying to reach here, because it's been happening a lot more lately, it seems, with this show, is that and again, I tell people this, I can't say this enough, I do the booking for this thing, I run the schedule, and I just, we do it by availability, we throw a date and time out, and if the person is cool, we put them on.
But somehow some things tend to line up.
It's very rare that we plan a show. We've done a couple shows, over the years of, let's do a
themed show.
A theme type show.
We haven't even discussed a theme for a long time.
No, we haven't. So there have been some kind of weird things going on here. This is another one of those kind of weird shows where it all seems to mash together.
Yes, it does. And even the first hour, we didn't plan what we were going to talk in the first hour.
We didn't.
Yet it had a thread throughout the entire show. You guys, I also want to thank each and every one of you. I was in the middle of a
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
I want to thank each and every one of you for downloading and listening and or tuning us in on your car radios, however you listen to Ghostly Talk.
We don't even know how it's done anymore. We just keep doing the show from here, and that's it.
Thank you, everybody, for spending some time with us today. And we'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. I know that's really, really bad. But for this week, this has been Ghostly Talk, and I'm Doug.
I'm Scott L.
And I'm Bonnie.
We'll see you guys next week.